Welcome to Flight Simulation Association. We're glad you've chosen to join us today, and we'll be beginning today's presentation momentarily. Now is a great time to double check your audio and volume settings to make sure that you're ready to go when the session begins in just a few moments. For those who aren't familiar, Flight Simulation Association is a free, community-driven organization designed to help newcomers get started in home flight simulation. We offer guides and resources in a central place so new simmers can more easily make connections with content creators, developers, and even find other simmers in their neighborhood. We don't make simulators or add-ons or hardware. We're not a store. We don't make money off commissions or affiliate sales, but we know the people who do make simulators and add-ons and hardware, and we're working hard to get them to give you fantastic discounts on some of their top products. You can help support that by creating a free account, becoming a FSA First Officer. By doing so, you'll get access to exclusive discounts, and you'll have the opportunity to submit questions during today's presentation. As a First Officer, you get access to our guides, to a series of 3 discounts that rotate regularly, and to webinars just like this one. You also have the option to upgrade to a Captain membership for $3 a month or $30 a year. FSA Captains unlock additional website features and have access to all of our discounts. That's more than 30 on many of the top products across flight simulation, including hardware, software, and more. If you're not watching today's presentation on FSA, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, or somewhere else, please come on and create a free account. By doing so, you'll be able to submit questions during the presentation, plus you'll unlock 3 discounts just for coming on and creating a free account. To do that, go to flightsimassociation.com/register. Put in some information and you'll be asked to verify your email. When you've verified your email, come back onto the website, click Webinars, and you'll see the link to watch this very presentation directly through the FSA website. And by creating your free account, you'll have the opportunity to submit questions that we'll answer during the course of the session, and of course, you'll unlock those 3 discounts. Plus, you have the option to upgrade to Captain for $3 a month or $30 a year, giving you access to additional perks, even more discounts, and most importantly, helping to support the costs of running the website and delivering webinars just like this one. We're just about to get started. We'll look forward to chatting with you and engaging with you over the next several minutes. Thank you very much for deciding to take part today. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a few moments to get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Evan, co-founder of Flight Simulation Association, and welcome to the X-Plane Past, Present, and Future webinar. Very excited to have Marty, Austin, and others from the team at X-Plane joining us on Flight Simulation Association today. Now, this will be a little bit different than the typical webinar that we see on Flight Simulation Association. Normally, what we're doing here is getting folks who are experts in certain areas like virtual reality to come on and share slides and kind of give a bit of an informal educational presentation for people. Today it's a little bit more of an interview style, questions and answers, but it's really, really exciting content and should be a lot of fun. Now we're coming at you live from EAA AirVenture in Wisconsin, the biggest air show in the world. Marty and the team are there right now. I'm not, of course. I'm very jealous that they get to be there while I don't. But they had a massive, massive storm come through last night, so we think everything's good. We did some testing this morning. We tested yesterday, but as we all know with live stuff, it all comes down to the day of. And so if there's anything that goes wrong, Marty and I met a couple of days ago to record a backup video that we can play if we have to, but I think everything's going to be good for a live presentation. Marty's here waiting in the green room right now, and we'll bring him on in just a second. For those of you who are joining us maybe for the first time or haven't been on some of our webinars in the past, if you like this kind of content and if you'd like us to continue doing it, we'd appreciate your support with a subscription. You can become an FSA captain for $3 a month. That helps us to cover the costs of running the website. Plus you get great perks, things like product discounts, access to our Discord, and more. So if you're able to help us support the cost of the website, we sure appreciate a subscription at flightsimassociation.com/membership. And a big thanks to all the FSA captains who are watching with us right now. Today's agenda, we're going to start with a conversation with Marty, marketing at X-Plane. Marty is a good friend of mine, been a supporter of ours through FlightSim Expo for several years. And we're going to just chat a little about the past and the present and a little bit about the future of X-Plane, where this platform has been, how it got started. Many simmers may not know the role that X-Plane is playing in commercial pilot training right now. So we'll have a chat about that. After that's done, we're going to share some screenshots and some videos, including some never before seen public footage of what may be coming next in X-Plane. That'll be in about 15-20 minutes. And following that, and this is news as of just a few minutes ago, Austin Meyer himself is going to be on, the creator of X-Plane, answering your questions. And X-Plane is doing this live with you to get your feedback, get your reactions, and hear from you. So we're super excited to have them on, and we'd love for you guys to send in your questions and share your reactions. That's a big part of what this is all about. So if you have a question about the future of X-Plane that you'd like to share, you can start sending those in anytime. You can do that on the FlightSim Association website as a first officer. You can send it through the captain chat if you're a captain, and on Facebook Live and on YouTube we'll be taking comments and questions there as well. So send those through. Phil, who's the other half of FlightSim Association, will be collecting those in the background. We're going to save all those questions until Austin is on at the end, and we'll get started with those questions at that point. So I think that pretty much covers my introduction. I'm going to bring Marty up on the screen now. Marty, you are live with us on FlightSim Association. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much. It's a little bit of an odd morning here. It's very quiet. It's very beautiful. The sun is out, but last night we had a massive storm move through, and it was actually so serious that the EAA actually started busing people out of the campgrounds into shelters. So it was a little bit scary, but everything's fine this morning. We're looking forward to going back to the show. I understand that they have a record crowd here.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Fantastic. Really good to see.
Last year they've worked. Right.
Yeah, I saw you guys were there with the Glime booth as well. We saw a couple of pictures and videos of that a few minutes ago, and been seeing some pictures on social media. So it looks like a great show so far.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
it's been a fantastic show. We've made some great.
Very good. Well, let's just jump in here, and we'll ask you a couple questions, and then we'll get into some screenshots and some pictures. So for those who don't know you and maybe who don't know X-Plane, let's just start with your name and what your role is at X-Plane.
Yeah, Marty Arendt, and I've been working with X-Plane for about 8 or 9 years. I've known Austin actually for a lot longer than that, but I handle the Steam account with X-Plane. I work with our distribution partners. I handle the press releases, and my favorite function actually is working with our commercial and professional accounts, which is, I think, becoming more and more important with X-Plane, and that we are a certified component of a lot of the training sims that are out there, and we've got more and more accounts, and we're picking up more accounts even here at Oshkosh.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. So maybe for those who don't know, and I can't imagine there's too many out there, but if you're new to the community, you started playing a flight sim on Xbox yesterday, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what X-Plane is for those who don't know about it already.
X-Plane, very simply, is the most realistic desktop simulator on the market. Now, when I say realistic, I'm talking about its ability to accurately recreate the actual flight dynamics and parameters of a real aircraft. And this is something that's really important for real world pilots and even the simulator enthusiasts that want to experience how a real aircraft reacts and operates. And that's why it's really important for student pilots or students in aviation courses. I mean, can you imagine someone training on a simulator only to find out when they get in the real aircraft that it doesn't operate like a aircraft? And that's one thing that X-Plane has always been absolutely top notch at, and that is recreating the actual real flight dynamics of a real aircraft.
Yeah, and we do a lot of surveys and a lot of talking to various content creators to help build the content on our website. And one of the things we always heard was, both flight dynamics for X-Plane, but the other thing was so much of the systems in the airplane are just out of the box ready to go. So you don't have to be searching for a whole bunch of different add-ons and mods and DLC. You can basically jump in the Cessna 172 and use the G1000 or use whatever GPS is there as it's meant to be used. And I think that's a great testament to your focus on training.
Right, yeah, just to give you an example also, the Cessna 172 is used by most of our commercial partners, and it's out of the box. So the FAA comes in, they certify it, and that's an out of the box product with no add-ons added.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so tell us maybe just a bit about your background. How did you, well, first of all, maybe did you get into aviation first, or did you get into, flight simulation first? What's your background in sort of simming and in flying?
Oh my gosh. Let's see, I bought my first version of BAO Flight Simulator, version 2. This was actually the first version for the PC. I had an IBM XT for my business. And that was in 1985, if you can believe it. So BAO was the actual developer of Microsoft Flight Simulator. They licensed it to Microsoft to publish, and then Microsoft ended up buying the product. But so that's how long I've been doing simming. I guess that kind of dates me, figure out that I'm probably at least 50 years old by now. But yeah, I got my pilot's license in 1972 at Santa Monica Airport in California. Interestingly enough, GA was so big at that time that Santa Monica was the busiest single runway airport in the world. And that was not by, obviously, by passenger volume, but by actual takeoff and landings. So I've been in the business for quite some time. I was somewhat inactive for a couple of years, but then in 2004, I bought a Cherokee 140, got my instrument rating, my multi-engine rating, and my commercial rating. And I've got about 1,200 hours of flight time.
That's great. I normally ask people if you got into flying first or if you got into simming first, but in your case,
Oh,
obviously it was flying because there wasn't really a flight sim back in those days, right?
I was a pilot in 1972. So I remember getting the first simulator. As I said, it was the BAO simulator, and I was in heaven. I mean, I couldn't believe it. The graphics were so crude. There was no sound. I mean, it was a click sound for your engine.
Yeah.
But there was nothing like it at that time. And it was just amazing that you could actually, fly a simulator and simulate an aircraft on your desktop computer.
Yeah, for sure. So then how did you get involved in X-Plane and kind of what drew you to getting involved in this particular simulator?
Uh, well, I've known Austin #1 since the 1990s. I was a board member and technology director at AvSim, which is obviously a large flight sim news and forum site. And Austin would come to our conferences every year and demonstrate X-Plane. So I've always been an admirer of both Austin and the X-Plane platform. I knew even back then, when X-Plane was very new, that flight dynamics and the performance in X-Plane just exceeded anything else on the market.
Yeah. And you've been involved. So when would this have been that you kind of got started in actually working for X-Plane full time?
Got involved with Austin in marketing X-Plane about 9 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, and I've been on board ever since with it, and I love it.
Yeah, that's great. So we've called today's webinar Past, Present, and Future. So let's talk about those three things, starting with the past. Tell us a bit about the history of X-Plane and how it got started.
I'm going to let Austin do that when we're done. Okay. But I'll just say this. Austin created X-Plane for himself. I mean, he created it because he was a pilot and he wanted something that flew like a real airplane. So he built the simulator from that point. But I'm going to let him go into that when he gets up here, because I'm sure he can give you a full history of how X-Plane got started and everything that's happened in really the last 25 years now. We've got 25 years since X-Plane came out with the first version. So
Perfect.
that's time,
Okay, so we'll tee him up for that. So let's talk about the present now. And we obviously know about the home version of X-Plane 11.5 that we all have access to. Where else is X-Plane used today? Is it a factor in pilot training anywhere?
Absolutely. We have got literally hundreds of educational institutions around the world, high schools, junior colleges, aviation academies that use X-Plane every day to train students. We have a number of companies that actually build BATD simulators. These are training simulators. They're not the full, of course, motion simulators that the airlines use, but a couple of companies, like, for example, we have a brand new one that just came on board with FAA certification a couple of months ago called SimBird, that are building a low-cost simulator. Gleim, who's been with us many years, is very well known in the training market. They have a certified simulator using X-Plane 11, and Precision Flight Controls, which actually builds full motion cockpits using X-Plane. Plus,
Yeah.
we have a lot of also of large multinational companies like Boeing. Some of these companies, we don't even really know what they're doing with X-Plane, but they are using it because we get the orders.
Yeah, I was going to say in my own commercial training, that's what we use as a precision flight controls device with X-Plane 10 at the time on it. And I didn't really know as much as I do now about flight simulation, so at the time it didn't mean anything to me. And now that I think back on it, I'm like, that's cool. Like I was using X-Plane in, professional flight training, and basically the benefit of all that commercial work that you guys do is given to us end users for a fraction of the price that we would have to pay if, it was just us. I think the commercial piece to it really allows us simmers to get a great benefit out of the work you guys do.
Right, right. The other market that we have that a lot of people may not be aware of is that we're on mobile platforms. We're on Android and we're on Apple. And we've had over 1 million downloads of X-Plane Mobile. And the interesting thing is over the years, and I've watched this happen, that the platforms have kind of come together in the fact that the coding that is now used in the mobile version is basically the same coding that's used in the desktop version, to the point that the flight modeling is the same. So you can go out and download X-Plane Mobile at no charge. We do charge for scenery subscriptions, and we do charge for the aircraft add-ons. But you can download that free of charge and run it on your iPhone, on your iPad, or on your Android device.
And on Linux on desktop as well, right?
On the desktop version, we support PC, of course. We support Apple, Mac, and we support Linux.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll move into the future then. You've published a few teaser videos on YouTube recently. We're going to see those in a few minutes, one with a new lighting model, another one about an aircraft. What can you tell us about the future? Is there any more coming? And before you answer that, do you want some screenshots right now?
Yeah, put up some screenshots, and I'm actually going to turn that over to Austin to talk about the future.
Okay.
I don't want to step on anyone's toes by saying the wrong thing, but I think he's got some prepared comments on that.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up some screenshots. I'll let Austin talk, and whenever you guys want the videos, we can do that too. But I'll start with the screenshots, and let's let Austin come on and talk about the future then.
Yeah, let's do the screenshots, and immediately after the screenshots, let's do the video teasers, and then we'll put Austin on.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like a plan. So I'm just bringing those screenshots up now for people to see. There's probably about 2 or 3 minutes of those playing in the background here. You, Marty, can't see them, but we're starting with the airports, and then we'll continue on basically with the others that you guys had sent in. So folks will be able to see those on YouTube right now. So anything else you want to touch on as far as what X-Plane's doing today, and anything else that we wanted to chat about before we jump into some of these videos?
No, I'm gonna turn it over to Austin at this point and let him carry on.
Okay.
Great. They're going to show this, and then.
Hey, man. Okay, so I guess there's a video feed off to my left. It looks like it's got a huge delay on it, so I'm not really seeing exactly what's going on real time.
So real time, we're showing the videos, the screenshots right now. So these are airport screenshots. Then we got the AutoGen stuff, and then some of those things. And then we're going to do videos afterwards. But you can just kind of talk. Why don't you just tell us a bit about the future, whatever you want to tell people.
Okay. All right. So I guess pulling the camera back a bit, when I first started writing X-Plane, the real purpose was to practice instrument flying. So I had a heck of a time getting an instrument currency review back in California, back in like the 90s, the mid 90s. And I wanted a flight simulator to help me stay current. I wasn't quite happy with Microsoft because it wasn't customizable enough, interestingly, to really to simulate the Piper Archer I was flying at the time. And so I said, well, I'm probably not going to be able to get Microsoft to modify their flight sim to suit my personal needs. So I need to come up with something that can handle any airplane. So myself or anyone else can simulate the airplane we want to simulate. And so the name X-Plane just kind of came to me. I applied blade element theory, which I was learning in college at that time. And that's what I wrote X-Plane for. So it started off as a sim designed to let anyone fly any airplane with realistic flight model, and the name, makes that pretty clear. Coming up on what was it? I've got Philip here with me. Was version 10 is what I call the plausible world. I wanted the world to be plausible for version 10, right? So when version 10 came along, I was saying, okay, I don't just want to simulate what an airplane can do physically. I want it to be in a world that's at least believable. We don't have a real world yet, but at least a plausible world. And then for version 11, we start diving that into basically just higher quality art assets, where it's not just plausible, but we start bringing in OSM data to start having the right buildings in the right place and start to get it closer to the real world. And right now, when I look at version 11, it feels very, very dated in the scenery engine. And then especially when I see the next generation stuff that we're looking at and working on internally, X-Men 11 just looks so old. And so now it's time to really up our game with the rendering. And also I'm working with a company called Beta, and their website is beta.team. It's a company I helped get in with really early, and we are making an electric vertical takeoff and landing airplane, which is the next generation of aviation. Obviously, general aviation, as far as single-engine propeller airplanes go, is kind of dying a slow death for a number of reasons. And a lot of people are afraid that general aviation is dead. And general aviation as we know it, which is a slow, obsolete, gas-burning, air-polluting, unsafe, single-engine propeller airplane operated by a private person for his own use and seldom flown, that is the segment of aviation that's dying, and with good reasons and bad reasons causing it as well. But there's going to be another revolution in aviation. Aviation isn't dying. We're just about to switch gears to a new type of aircraft. And this new type of aircraft is going to be the electric vertical takeoff and landing airplane. It's not going to be a flying car. We're never going to have flying cars, and I can go into the engineering on that. If you want to allocate time during the interview, I can explain why. But we're not going to have flying cars. We're going to have something that I think is better than flying cars. We're going to have airplanes that don't use fuel and don't use runway. They got big old wings, so they'll never drive on the road. But they're not going to be constrained to airports. They're not going to be constrained to fuel consumption. And so the next generation of aviation travel is going to involve you wanting to go somewhere, possibly far away, possibly nearby, whip out your phone, say, I want to go to Myrtle Beach, or I want to go to New York today, and the thing saying, all right, be at the top of a building that's 3 blocks away in 7 minutes. And an airplane's going to descend from the heavens, electric, very little noise, no pollution. You'll hop in, it'll lift you up and carry you away, and it'll either take you directly to your destination if your destination is within 200 nautical miles, or it'll take you straight to a big airport, such as Atlanta or something like that, if you've got a long-distance trip. And then once you land at LaGuardia, you'll hop at another one of these, and rather than the 50-minute drive that we've got in traffic from LaGuardia to New York, let's say if New York is where you're going, you're going to hop in one of these electric vertical takeoff and landing airplanes on the ramp out LaGuardia, you'll be on a skyscraper by Central Park in 7 minutes. And that's the next generation of aviation. And I'm improving the flight model right now internally in X-Plane to handle this type of flying, which is a very complex type of flying because of all these rotors lifting in all these different directions. You have some rotors that lift, some rotors that push, some rotors that vector, big wings. And so right now I'm overhauling the flight model of X-Plane internally to handle all these different types of electric vertical takeoff and landing airplanes. And it's a great, great test of the flight model. Because if I can handle all the rotors that lift, all that push, all that vector, well, things like helicopters and airplanes, which we're already thinking about, are handled just that much more accurately. And certainly with Beta, X-Plane is the sim, the pilots use to flight test the airplane in the sim before they go out in the real airplane. And so the flights in the real airplane, which has over 100 flights on it now, it's called a Leah. There's over 100 flights on that airplane prototype. They're all pre-flighted in X-Plane first. And we use X-Plane for performance prediction, certification planning, flight test planning, customer presentation, the whole 9 yards. And so what we see going on right now, to come back to your question, the future of X-Plane, is I want rendering that's much, much better than we have now. I want a flight model that's good enough to handle these incredibly aerodynamically complex airplanes to an engineering level of accuracy. And that is my near-term goal. And we're realizing that goal internally. And then at your show, I guess you have a show coming up in San Diego, I think it is, in a few months. We're going to go ahead and show what we have then. We're going to show you what we've assembled so far and then tell you how you can get it at that point.
Okay. Do you want to do a couple of those videos now? I see some questions in the chat about trees that I think might be answered by that.
Sure, yeah, pop up the video. And I don't really see any video here on the computer I'm looking at. And the computer I've got over the side has such a delay, it's kind of useless. But pop up the video and just tell me what you see, and I'll take your word for it.
Yep, no, I will. So I'm gonna mute us. We'll play the videos, and then we'll come back, and we've got lots and lots of questions for you. So let's bring up those videos right now, and then we'll go from there. All right, so lots of great reactions. We were just chatting with X-Plane and the team as you guys were reacting to the trees, reacting to some of those videos. I know people have seen a couple of those, but the trees were brand new. So Austin, now that you've sort of seen all three of those, and before we start into questions, any kind of comment that you want to make about what people just saw or what you just heard them react to?
Sure. Okay, so at Laminar Research, we have a weekly email that we send around where we show images and videos of what we've done in the previous week and what we plan to do, our to-do list for the next week. So as the next generation of X-Plane is being assembled, it is a team of people all working virtually from their homes with a weekly check-in. And Ben Sutnick especially is doing project management. I have the broader vision of what I'm looking for in a simulator. I'm cranking on the flight model, and I'm cranking on real weather and weather that changes with time is the code that I'm actually writing right at this very moment. But these types of videos that you're seeing, this has been my life for about the last 2 years on a slightly smaller scale, where every week it's somebody coming in, or more than one person each week, coming in saying, all right, well, here's the trees I've got, here's the lighting I've got. Well, and we're starting to get this with clouds, and don't worry, the time will come. And so this, what you just saw in these videos is just a tiny little glimpse into what I'm, and everyone in the company is doing on a weekly basis and has been throughout the last 2 years.
Okay, so lots of questions. I'm going to do my best to get to as many of them as we can. And let's start with the one that a lot of people have asked. Basically, is this X-Plane 12? Is this X-Plane 11? Are there major development changes coming to X-Plane 11? Or are what we see right now, is that going to be whatever's coming next?
Sure. Okay, so the way I would phrase this is the version number is not the most important thing in the world. All the version number determines is whether you pay $59.99. And since we go for, 5 years on X-Plane 11 for a total of, $9.99 a year. Oh, no, can we afford it? Yeah, and all the free updates, So what is a version number? A version number is whether you pay $59.99. I'm going to say that's about the least important thing in the entire world, right? Whether you pay $59.99 once every 5 years or every 6 years. So I'm not really getting hung up on the version number. What we're doing is we're building the next generation of technology. I mean, who knows what we're going to call it, and who knows how we're going to price it, and who knows, we haven't decided all those things yet. What I'm building is the next generation simulator engine. And at your show, by the time we get to your show in San Diego, we will have our ducks in a row on what we're going to do with labeling and pricing and all that kind of stuff. And we'll have, I'm sure, a more coherent video that shows the whole sim from beginning to end in a more coherent manner. So, regardless of what version number we call it, this is what's coming next.
Okay, lots of questions about seasons. There was a bit of a hint in that trees video because I saw it said spring, fall, summer, and winter. So can you talk at all about what type of season modeling might show up in the future?
Sure. So people have been asking for spring, summer, fall, winter seasons forever. And if I was to code it, since I find that to be, a somewhat important feature, not a top feature, if I were to code it, I'd probably say, oh, set your time to spring or summer or winter, and then it'll load the art assets, for that time of year. We're done, ship it, go. But when I started getting the videos in from my team, they were like, no, that's not good enough. They literally wrote shaders to interpolate between one season and the other. And the interpolation you saw involved trees being kind of randomly chosen to be fall or summer. And since this video was produced, that video is already obsolete. Last week, I got screenshots from one of my Eastern European artists that assembled this, and he's now got Perlin noise to get the trees to kind of go to the fall leaf peeping colors, kind of like in groups, and kind of Perlin pseudo-random groups, not just randomly splattered all over. And so literally the image you saw is already obsolete. But we are absolutely getting seasons, and it's not just 1 of 4 seasons. It changes over time in groups with a shader that interpolates between the seasons. And the shader doesn't just interpolate based on the seasons. It's based on the latitude as well, because summer in one area is still kind of more like fall in another. And so it's at least a 2-dimensional interpolation based on both time and latitude. And it's an interpolation in 2 dimensions between all these different art assets. What that means is no matter what you see, you ain't seen it all. And so there's going to be an infinite variety of imagery that you'll be able to see in both time and space.
Okay, talking about weather still and kind of related to seasons. Manfred, FSA captain, the display of weather's looking good. Clouds. Let's talk about clouds. Are you going to switch to volumetric clouds? When can we expect that?
Yes, okay. The answer is, I'll just let that cat out of the bag. Yeah, we're doing volumetric clouds internally right now. I'm flying them right now. When I used to fly my Columbia 400, which would go to about 17,500 feet, happily. Cloud tops will go sometimes to 35 or 40,000 feet. And so that Columbia 400 could make it only about halfway, right, up the base of a nice big thunderstorm. I fly a Lancer Revolution now, it can go up to 28,000 feet. Well, thunderstorms can go up to 35 or 40,000 feet. So even my Lancer doesn't quite get over the top of the really serious storms. And when you are flying a light airplane, especially through the southeast in the summertime with all these big vertical clouds building up, you get the sense of being like a tiny little ant, wandering around an obstacle course that's miles high. And the ability to get over a cloud is like first and foremost in your mind. It's like, well, can I get up over that cloud or do I have to go around it? What is my option? If I'm here, the cloud's here, my airplane capability is to go this high. Can I make it over? Do I have to go around? And it's a constant decision-making process. And when you're actually up there in the sky in a light airplane, you become very aware of how big nature is and how small you are. And a thing that I want to be able to communicate to my customers is that feeling of being like this tiny little mosquito or ant. I guess mosquito is a better analogy, kind of wandering around the sky, trying to get around these just unbelievably huge clouds. And then what's the decision-making process you go through? And X-Plane 11, I think, failed in that pretty spectacularly because the clouds were so distracting with these two-dimensional billboards coming at you from angles, and they were so low res, you couldn't really tell what they were. You didn't get that feeling at all. But it was about a week or two ago when I got the first generation of volumetric cloud rendering from Ben, that in X-Plane, I actually had that feeling I get in the real airplane of being an infinitesimal little flying object with giant clouds up above me. And I'm asking the question, what kind of climb capability do I have to get over this problem? Or how much am I going to have to go around my way to get around it? And it's a feeling you get in light airplanes, and I want to bring that to the simulator. And volumetric clouds and next generation cloud shapes are necessary to do that. And of course, the next level is clouds that change over time smoothly. So just when you think you have your answer figured out, it turns out you're wrong because the game is changing as you're playing it. And that's another thing that I want to bring in for the next generation engine, and I've been coding that for the last few weeks. I'm starting to test it now internally.
Will you see in those new clouds ice forming on airplanes? Will you see things like snow collecting on airplane surfaces?
Okay, so I'm not sure how the rendering of the ice is going to go yet. The mathematics of the ice formation on the airplane is absolutely simulated right now. So everybody after this live stream should Google a video I did. Chris, Phil, do you remember the search terms, the icing video I did, right? The ice on 844 X-ray.
Well, it's an Austin Meyer's blog. It's like 2 blog entries ago. Ice doesn't do what you think it does.
Yeah. Ice, like the ice myth busted. What does ice really do to your airplane? I did a pretty involved video on how ice impacts real aircraft, as we learned, as you in aviation sometimes, the hard way from an accident. And I took a pretty close look at how ice actually impacts airplanes according to wind tunnel data, and then how that impacts real airplanes. And then I took the wind tunnel mathematical side, I put it into X-Plane, I flew X-Plane against an actual accident case to see if X-Plane did the same thing the real airplane did, and sure enough, the matchup was just like uncannily good. And so, ice is something we're going to simulate right now internally, simulate extremely accurately. You haven't seen that yet. You haven't gotten that simulation yet, but you will when the time, comes. And, I've got artists looking at rendering. Rendering ice is always going to be tricky to do because ice only builds up on certain parts of the plane, not other parts of the plane. So I'm not quite sure how good the rendering of the ice is going to be, but I can promise you the mathematical modeling is pretty much spot on.
Okay, lots of questions around what Microsoft is doing as far as like streaming scenery data into the simulator and pulling stuff live and then converting ground textures to satellite images. Is that in the works for X-Plane at all?
No, I've never been a fan of the way Microsoft does scenery. Everybody keeps saying ortho photos. Well, first of all, I probably only got about maybe 30 minutes Microsoft 2020 or whatever the new sim is called because I just, I had to try it. And I recall, flying like over my house, and the trees look like these big melted blobs. I couldn't really see my house with these big melted blobs. I'm like, let's go over to the shopping mall, look at all the cars. And I kind of get close down to the cars. They all look like, it's like post-apocalyptic. The cars are like these kind of melted, they look like turtles that have been painted like cars, and all the polygons are melted in the pavement, and it looks like the paint all melted and spread out over the pavement. And so what Microsoft does is they get just this image that looks exactly like the real world. It's say 3,000 feet and above, right? At 3,000 feet above, it is just dialed in. But then you get close, and all of a sudden the limits of the technology suddenly start boiling to the surface, and everything looks like it's a post-apocalyptic, dream state of melted polygons. And then the sim is always kind of stuttering as it's loading all these assets in. It's just not the way I want to build a sim. It's just not the way I'm going to build a sim. Instead, what I do is I have artists build the best assets they can and then apply them using the best data we can get. And so, no, you won't actually see your actual house. But whatever you do see will be a crisp, clean, actual building with trees that you just saw, crisp, clean trees moving in the wind. And that's what I look for in a sim. I'd rather do a really good job of building a believable, plausible world you can operate in from a scenery standpoint, where all the buildings and trees, of course, the buildings are based on whatever OSM data we can get, showing where buildings are. Of course, the trees are the appropriate types of trees for the region. Of course, the leaf colors change with the seasons and the latitude. Of course, we want it to be real. But I prefer to go start with the first principles, the high-quality art assets applied as intelligently as possible, so we don't get into this whole low resolution, everything falls apart when you get in close. Gigantic disk requirement, gigantic CPU and GPU and memory requirement. I want to keep those down. I want the simulator to feel like a tool that you can quickly use to get a job done. I want it to load quickly, use enough resources that your computer isn't bogged down and stuttering, and quickly let you get the job done of simulating a flight. So I just look at it a little bit differently, and that's good. And if some people think, oh, no, I prefer the Microsoft way of doing it, well, great. I mean, isn't that the most wonderful thing about capitalism? You buy the sim you want to buy. There's something for everyone. So it's good that I'm different from Microsoft. And if I just tried to copy Microsoft, that would be a terrible thing, because why would you want to buy X-Plane? What would be the purpose of X-Plane existing? And what choice would people have? Right? And there's negative answers to every one of those questions. So it's good that I do things differently than Microsoft, and I'm always going to. That's not going to change.
Okay, so I'm doing my best to answer questions. Firstly, from the FlightSim Association website, those of you commenting on YouTube, I'm watching. I know Philip is watching because I keep hearing him react to them. So we are going to try and kind of work those in where we can, but I'm mostly focusing on questions from the audience. So here we go. Performance. Lots of people asking about this. Will there be a performance improvement just generally across X-Plane 12? And can you talk about performance in virtual reality?
X-Plane 12? I don't know about that. Well, we haven't decided on what labeling and pricing and distribution modeling is going to be exactly. But will there be performance improvement? The answer is no, absolutely not. When we have these much higher resolution trees, volumetric clouds, which I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag a little too early there, but all the physically based lighting, and this next gen lighting, it's not just lighting we tune to look better. Ben Sutnick, the kind of the lead project manager on this whole thing, he's like measuring the watts per square meter on the airplane coming from the freaking sun, okay? He's literally doing physically based lighting. And so what we're seeing with X-Plane is physically based lighting acting on a blade element theory airplane. We're getting down to first principles, not just in the way the airplane flies, which has always been pretty close to first principles. We're getting down to first principles in the freaking scenery now. So is that going to be a performance improvement over the hacks and the fakes that we've done in the past? No way. It's going to be a performance decrease. Of course, you're going to need higher quality hardware. But what I want to see is a more efficient use of the hardware you've got. I want to see like 10 times the realism and accuracy in math for 1.5 times the CPU demand. You see, I want to be more efficient about what we do. And I want that cooling fan on your computer to be running at full speed while all those CPUs are, packed at redline, and the GPUs at redline, and the whole computers overheating. That's what I want to see. So is it going to require more power? Yes. Is it going to be a lower frame rate for a given piece of hardware? I'm sure it will. Although, hold on, let me back up just a little bit. In X-Plane 11, you can switch between OpenGL and Vulkan. Our next generation technology we dismissed with OpenGL, okay? So we are hardwired straight to Vulkan. And I can tell you that at least on the initial tests that I've run, I was running way, way, way faster with the next generation engine than I was with the old one. But that wasn't with all the new stuff dialed in to use that power, you see. So we may run slower, but it's only because we're doing more. What I want to see is more efficiency. That's what I want to see, and it's still too early in the process to say exactly where that's going to play out. But ditching OpenGL, going straight up Vulkan, let me see, my first impressions were one of just incredible, incredible speed. Oh, and then Apple's coming out their M1 chip, which is we're finding working pretty dang nicely as well. But of course, plenty of people are Windows and Linux, and of course, those are faster per dollar than Macintoshes anyway, always have been. So let's just say the first thing we do is we get it looking the way we want. The next thing we do is optimize the heck out of it to make sure there's no inefficiencies in that rendering and modeling process. We've only done the first thing of those two to release the videos. We haven't done the second thing. In other words, the question you asked is just a little premature. That will be answered. Maybe we'll have some answers by FlightSim Expo, and if not, we will have it by beta 1 of the released product.
Okay, I want to go into some user-created content stuff. Are there improvements on the roadmap that'll make the creation and distribution of local mesh patches easier for scenery authors? And lots of other questions about the mesh system. Can you talk about that?
Oh yeah, that's always been like the second or third item on our to-do list because we're always like, hey, how good a world can we build? And then making it like super accessible it's just like we want to do it, but it's never quite the top item on the list. Unfortunately, on that one, I just got to say, let me put a pin in that, or let me mention that to Ben. Let's see if we can improve the ability to import meshes. I know a lot of people want it. It's just, it's always, time is what I'm indicating here. What kind of time have we got, and do we slow down the product for it? That's the question we're always faced with.
Okay, and as we're talking about some of these user-created things, do you think stuff that works in X-Plane 11, scenery, airplanes, etc., is going to continue to work? Is backwards compatibility important?
Answer is yes. Yeah. So I am much more cavalier about this, but Ben is just like rigorous about it. Ben is like, each version of X-Plane will work with the assets from the previous version, like no exceptions to the rule. And a significant amount of the development I've been doing over, say, the last year or so has been opening airplanes and scenery packages from the old X-Plane 11 that's on the internet, which is just starting to look so bad to me now, but opening those and making sure that they still come in and fly. That's like, to me, a distressingly large part of my time allocation. So like it, or whether I like it or not, the answer is yes. The answer is yes to that.
Do you think on the scenery creation specifically, are we going to be able to stack objects onto facades, putting a helipad, a windsock on a rooftop, that kind of thing?
I'm not going to say, I don't know. The answer is I don't know, so I'm not going to make up an answer. That's something I'll talk with Ben about that, since he kind of does the architecture of that system, about the ability to import stuff and stack it up.
Okay. And someone keeps asking me, can you hit the trees? Will they be able to be collided into? I don't know why.
I actually don't know. I didn't try that yet. Have you guys tried it yet? Do you even know? Okay, I haven't tried it. To me, that's not the most interesting thing in the world. So basically, when I run a flight simulator, I want the airplane to fly like the real airplane is going to fly. But running into things is not in my flight plan, you see. And so a lot of people go, well, what happens when you run into things? Well, we know what happens when we run into we run airplanes into things. Do we need to simulate that? It's like where the important information is coming from? I don't think so. Now, when you're getting down into a helicopter, and you're, a helicopter down there, and those rotors start interacting with the trees. Well, I mean, the UH-1 Huey, if it's rotor versus tree, rotor wins. So it's possible to build a helicopter that will take the upper hand in the rotor versus tree contest. But of course, it's also possible for it to go the other way. But it's certainly not the most important thing in my world, whether the rotor or the tree wins in the collision. If you put a light airplane down in the trees, I think you pretty much know you've lost at the moment the light airplane touches the tree. I don't think you need the simulator to tell you what you already know. You see, so the whole ground collision thing has never been my priority, because I'm here to make a flight simulator, not a crash simulator.
Okay. Online flying, will there be multiplayer functionality? Because there's something on the mobile version right now, not on the desktop version. What's happening with that?
Right, and so I have an answer to that. And the answer is definitely yes and definitely no. And here's what I mean by that. We built this online mobile system for a reason, okay? I want to see a future where when you get online with X-Plane, you are connected to all other copies of X-Plane. Mobile, desktop, soon enough, VR goggles don't even need a computer. Whatever hardware you're running X-Plane on, I want you to be able to get into this world and fly with all the other X-Planers. It should make no difference whether they're on an iPhone, a laptop, a desktop, a pair of VR goggles. It shouldn't make any difference at all. And so long term, there is no question we are building, or I'm having people build a world where all X-Planers are flying together in that world. And the only question is, when does it migrate over to desktop? When do we support some sort of maybe VR goggles that don't even require a computer, so you can just put on goggles and fly wherever you are? Those are questions for the future that I don't know exactly right now. So I can promise you, I want to build a virtual world where when you log in with X-Plane, you're in a world with everyone else. That I know. Exactly when that migrates to the desktop, that's a scheduling issue that I don't have the answer to right now. But without question, when you fly mobile online, you are looking at the very first little technology demonstration of what we can do, and I view that as a pre-flight, just a little sandbox pre-flight of what's ultimately going to happen for X-Plane, which is all X-Planers are flying together in a virtual world.
Okay, going into airplanes, you've previewed the A330. Is that going to have in-depth system models by default, systems model by default?
Right. So Alex Unruh was doing that. He did our 737. We got Rodrigo, a new artist, who's absolutely freaking phenomenal. And Rodrigo's down in South America, as I recall. And so however amazing the 737 looked to you in X-Plane 11.0, that's how good I want the A330 to feel when you first open it with our next gen sim. It's a new flagship.
You talked about electric powered aircraft already. Are any of those going to be included in the future?
Yes. So ALIA is, and again, see beta.team if you want to see something cool. ALIA is the airplane being built by Beta, a company that I am partial owner of, or we'll say involved with, like I am with Laminar Research. And we are using X-Plane within Beta to do all the simulations of this aircraft, not just for fun, but for business and test flight use as well. And yes, we're gonna have ALIA released in the next generation of X-Plane, so everybody can get a sense of what these electric VTOLs like to fly. And yeah, you will be flying the same model that our flight test pilots fly before they fly the real airplane. When you get X-Plane, you're getting an engineering level sim. It just works that way. There's no way you're not. And so you're going to fly the same airplane that our test pilots fly.
Is there going to be an A320?
Let's put it this way. We have a handful of airplanes coming together in the background, and I'm not going to spill the beans on what they all are because we're going to find fun ways to introduce them, and I don't want to take that enjoyment and surprise away when the next videos come out.
Fair enough. All right. How about gliders?
Yeah, I mean, we have our simple little glider now. Maybe I'll ask an artist. I could ask Rodrigo to tune it up, and he could bring it up to more modern standards in a week, I'm sure. So we could add it. It's not my absolute top priority, but sure, we could tune up the glider if people want that. And the fact that you asked me means somebody asked you, and the fact that somebody asked you means somebody wants it, right? So I'll consider that to be bumped up the priority list a little bit.
Okay, talking about weather now, will transitions in the weather be dynamic, no more mid-flight reloads?
Yes. Answer yes. And that's what I've been coding personally for the last 2 weeks or so. I mean, last night, late into the night, I was working on that. And I'm connecting with Ben right now to get the clouds that he renders to be in sync with a flight model that generates all this stuff. And Ben is pushing the clouds over the GPU while I'm doing the flight modeling on the CPU, and we're working on the synchronization to make sure the two are in sync, even though the GPU and the CPU are each burning their own little electrons, right? And this is just a step towards a dynamic world. Everything's changing all the time. What you see is what you get, as close to first principles as possible, with your fans on your computers humming along at max and all your temperatures going up to red line. That's what I'm looking for, and this is a little step in that direction. So yes.
Okay. And what about things like wind in valleys, mountains, maybe the terrain affecting clouds? Is that kind of thing going to be taken into effect?
Oh, interesting. So I haven't really gone very far down that road yet. Right now, even in X-Plane 11, the wind kind of follows the terrain a little bit when you get close in, but the clouds certainly are not smart enough to do that. I don't know, maybe I could dial that in a little more. I mean, what I'm doing with the weather right now that I've been working on for the last several weeks or so is whenever you enter the weather in the user interface, I want to build that pattern mathematically as accurately as possible, and then have Ben render that pattern visually as accurately as possible. So I'm trying to follow the UI, the interface that's been requested by the user, and I'm also trying to have it follow the real weather, where I get all this way more real weather data now than we ever used to in X-Plane 11. I want to get all this real weather and really come up with a dynamic changing model. And I have that now. But I'm following the model that has been distributed by the NOAA, which at a global scale is not high resolution enough to actually go up and down every hill and valley and mountain. So that's a level where the globally available data, or the real weather, as I call it, is simply not available, and where the user interface simply doesn't handle that, because the user interface gives you weather for the entire region. And so what you've done just now is kind of go down a new little avenue that I haven't really thought about much before, because I've been trying to either do what the user says or do what the NOAA says, but neither of them really understand the concept of all the micro, weather patterns around mountains and valleys and stuff like that. So that would be a fascinating. Phil, can you just take a note on that for me to look at that? Somebody, or Marty, write that down or remember that? Okay, because I'm not going to try and write stuff down in the middle of this interview. But yeah, we'll take a note on that, because I think that's a fascinating question. And it's something I just hadn't really thought of, because I've been looking at, do we listen to the user or do we listen to the NOAA? Well, how about we listen to nature? That's a fascinating question.
Let's talk a little bit about user interface stuff. So at maybe X-Plane 10, there were some comments that you needed to basically masters in computer engineering to be able to run it. I don't think you're going to like that comment, but anyway, X-Plane 11 got a lot better. But now we have we have Microsoft on the Xbox. So tell me about, are we making it easier for people maybe who aren't so tech savvy to run the simulator?
I don't really think so. I feel like changing the user interface in the next generation of X-Plane has not been a priority. People seem to like the interface of X-Plane 11. It seems to work for them pretty darn well. I have my kind of minor little nits or complaints about it, but most of my complaints are just related to the amount of code it takes behind the scenes to display it, not the actual interaction with it. So I don't see a huge user interface update planned in the near term, because what we have now just freaking works fine. Now, I have, by the way, rewritten the user interface to PlaneMaker and Airfoil Maker to be quite a bit nicer to look at, and bigger and higher res, and nice, bigger numbers for bigger res monitors. So I've overhauled the UI for PlaneMaker and Airfoil Maker myself, but we're not trying to overhaul the interface that Tyler made.
Okay. What about triple monitor setups? So someone's saying X-Plane opens 3 times in Windows when you have 3 monitors. That causes a performance hit. Are you looking at performance across multiple monitor setups in the future?
Oh, yeah, well, absolutely. But, I mean, pixel fill rate comes down to video cards and shaders. And so looking at, yes. Able to make any better? No promises.
Let me step in here. If you're opening 3 separate windows on 3 monitors, you're doing it wrong. So what you should be doing, and this is what all the professional simulators, all the certified PFC, Gleim, Simbird, all those simulators are doing, is they are stretching 1 window across 3 monitors. And that is so much more efficient than having 3 separate monitors on, 3 separate windows on 3 monitors. So if you're getting 1 window across 3 monitors, you're getting almost like 95% of the frame rate that you would get on 1 monitor, because that's just GPU. If you stretch out 1 window over multiple monitors, you are using more GPU. If you're using 3 separate windows, you're using 3 times as much CPU, which you don't have.
Got it.
So that's the answer.
Well, there you go. So what you want is for your GPU to be busy with the pixels and nothing else. Get all the other overhead out of the way. And so you get that one big window. You've only got the CPU for 1 X-Plane, not 3 X-Planes. Okay. And GPUs are more powerful than the CPUs at doing graphics, because all those little calculations are living right there in the card. They're not running all around the computer back and forth like, buses. So, yeah, one window is good. And so what I would like to see is let's come back to the interface, right? The last question. I like to see the interface that makes it kind of impossible to make the mistake that this user is making. An interface that says, look, what's the easy way to set this up? However many monitors you've got hooked to this copy of X-Plane, it's kind of impossible to mess it up. How do I maximize the ability to see, multi-monitor views, or multi-monitor cockpits, or multi-monitor external visual? Let's come up with an interface improvement that makes it kind of hard to mess it up. So I think that's something we should look at. Maybe if we take a little note on that as well for me to talk about with Ben after this live stream.
Can you tell us anything about virtual reality? I got a bunch of questions across various areas, but do you want to just talk about it generally first? Performance, what improvements might be made, that kind of thing?
Yeah, okay, so VR is a thing that I think we succeed in for rendering, and we absolutely fail in for the interface. And what I mean by that is, and when I say we, though, I kind of mean the industry, not just X-Plane. I don't feel like we've got the right gloves and cameras to see your fingers and really interact with stuff yet. And every now and again, someone will say, hey, I got this hardware that lets you interact with the cockpit. It's only $8,000 a unit. Can you support it? I might be able to sell 3, possibly even 4 copies of X-Plane with it. I'm just like, oh, God, this is not my right? My economic value just isn't there. So I think what the industry needs is the proper way to really interface with a virtual world. And once we've got the gloves or the cameras, that see what your hands are doing to really accurately let your hands interact with things, then we may be able to do what I believe is the second half, right? I think we've hit the first half of the problem very well. We're showing the world. Now we need to do the second half, interacting with it. And no, we're not there yet, but I want to be. But I'm not clear on how to do it yet because I need hardware for it. I need the API.
So someone's asking about the VR mouse pointer. So if I'm hearing you, you're saying you're more focused on let's get the hardware there versus let's try to improve the interaction via software.
Well, okay, so Chris Serio is someone in the company that does that, not me. So I'm starting to, get to a point where no matter what I say, Chris will come at me later on today and be like, that's not what I'm doing at all. So, but I don't have a big Laminar team here because everybody's heads down working right now. It's just a couple of us from Laminar here at Oshkosh. So Chris isn't here because he and almost everyone else in the company are heads down coding right now. But yeah, I would certainly like to see that simple little mouse pointer work better. And if it doesn't work properly now, I'd like to hear very specifically what's wrong with it, or very specifically how it could be better. Shoot me an email and explain it to me if you want. Of course, my email is austin@x-plane.com. And shoot me an email explaining very specifically exactly how you want that mouse cursor to be better. I will forward it to Chris, and he'll decide whether or not he thinks it's a valid request, because it sounds like a pretty simple thing. I mean, the mouse pointer should certainly work as well as it could. It's a pretty simple construct.
Okay. Another streaming scenery related question says, I don't want to see my house, but I do want to be able to fly VFR, follow an accurate road, follow a railway. Can that be improved, or what's the plan for that if it's not going to be streaming scenery?
Oh yeah, so that person that said that is basically right up my alley with scenery. No, it doesn't make sense to try and see my actual house, because all of a sudden the CPU, the disk, the networking, everything goes up through the roof, and the sim is hardly any better in how it appears. But now you have all these pauses and everything like that. It's just so not worth it. Instead, what you want to have is a really good building, this tight, small, low disk, low memory, recycled in the scenery, but in a random way where you don't see any patterns. But then that keeps your memory and your CPU down to avoid any pauses or glitches in the sim. That's what's so important. And without question, these art assets should follow the OSM data as accurately as possible, most certainly including roads and railroad tracks. And the answer is, yeah, we definitely want to improve the way that works, since we have OSM data, but the OSM data is constantly updated. But as we build new scenery, we build it off the latest OSM data. And I have these artists bringing in new art assets to make, the assets that sit on the OSM data more accurate. And so we're constantly just building that up, and we'll continue to do so, no question.
Okay, who is X-Plane targeting? Home simmers, entertainment, home simmers for training, commercial pilots? Who's the target?
For me, that's sort of like asking, so who do you build an airplane for? Who do I build an airplane for? I build the airplane I want to build, and whoever uses it is going to use it. So I have never, 0 times have I had a focus group on what people look for in X-Plane. 0 times. This isn't a focus group or a design by committee simulator. The way X-Plane works is, I decide what I think is a good simulator. I constantly have people coming to me saying, I want this, I want that, and I always take that into advisement. And then my team of artists is and other coders is constantly saying, oh, this is the job I want to do. I think we need this done, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm taking this job. And everybody has their little fiefdom where they really become masters of some little element of coding or graphics or something like that. And then everybody commits that to the X-Plane, master encrypted repository where all this stuff lives. So I don't have a focus group, and I don't say, oh, well, this is a target I want to hit, or this is a person I want to make happy. I just don't operate that way. I'm kind of like the opposite of a politician, I guess, in that sense. Instead, the question I ask is, what is the most, awesome sim? People are telling me what they need, and the people that are developing and have their areas of expertise that they load into the sim. That's just the way we work. So what do I want? I want a sim that is realistic in the flight model, has great scenery assets placed according to where they are in the real world, loads quickly. And if that means that we have, 1,000 autogen houses, and they're, used many times to build a virtual city, and the sim loads 10 times faster and uses 1/10 the RAM, but yeah, you can see the same house, 10 different times in different parts of the city, fine. I want a sim that is quick to load, runs fast, never glitches, never hesitates, never pauses, runs at a high frame rate, flies over art assets that are just as state-of-the-art as we can build them, so the world looks as good as possible. And the lighting and tree videos, that you've just seen show that. Goes to first principles as much as possible. And blade element theory, it's not exactly first principles, but it's getting there. The lighting model that you saw, that is a first principles lighting model. I want to work towards first principles. And at that point, what we're simulating is what an airplane does. Now that we're simulating what an airplane does in what a world looks like, who's going to use that? Whoever wants to. That's who's going to use it.
Okay, on to some airplane really. Actually, a lot of people ask about ATC, so let me ask about that. I'm a big FlightSim guy, so I don't care about this, but lots of people seem to. Can you talk about the ATC and explain?
Yeah, sure. So I literally hired a new guy, Jim Keir, who is literally the ATC guy. And so we have a full-time person overhauling ATC and making it better.
Okay, that's just
Sorry,
that.
I'm not going into the details of the ATC. So, all right. So, I want you to have shown up for this for a reason. So I'll give you some little gossip. I'll air a little dirty laundry here. So I wasn't totally happy with Chris Serio's ATC system, so I wrote my own, and I presented it to Laminar Research inside the company, in-house. It was like, look at my ATC system. I think it's better than Chris. And the company kind of looked at it and rolled their eyes. It's like, no, we're staying with Chris. And but then I am not very happy with Chris's system. I think it's buggy. Once I've watched it fly an airplane into a mountain a certain number of times, my eyes are just rolled so far back in my head I can't even believe it. And so we've hired Jim Keir, and now he's updating and improving the existing ATC system to not have the problems that we've seen with Chris's system. And so you're kind of seeing this kind of, duct taped, and constantly, leveled up system that takes advantage of all the rules that Chris has programmed into the system that are supposedly real, but then with the bug fixes by Jim, and that supposedly gets us to the AI ATC system that we want to have. But you just may be able to read a tiny bit into this in my body language and my phraseology here. I'm not the most excited about that, frankly. And the reason is simple. An AI text-based system, it's always going to be lame compared to talking to an actual person with voice over IP. That's when things get exciting, when you can talk to a human air traffic controller. That's when things get fun. That's when things get intense. And so I think just like you, the whole concept of the AI text, now turn heading to 30, sir, it's like, okay, it's not the same as talking to a person where the stress, the rush, the casualness, the flexibility, the rigidity in some cases are all communicated with the way we're interacting with the controller, and that human dynamic comes in there. That's when it just goes off the chain from an experience standpoint. So I think the whole AI ATC is just a little bit of a dead end. And that's why I'm so excited about this massively multiplayer online mobile that we're starting to deploy now. And as I think I said earlier on in this interview, the concept of an online world where you get in there, you're with all the other explainers, pilots, air traffic controllers, the works. That's the world I'm really excited about. And so the ATC we have now is bug fixes.
Yeah, makes sense. Airplanes, now we got a few more questions on those. Will you be partnering with third-party developers the way other sims have done to bring in sort of quote-unquote default airplanes to the sim, or is everything that you guys make default in the sim going to be yours?
It's all going to be ours. Why go to a third-party person that builds a great airplane and put it in an X-plane? Why do that? What am I trying to do? Make sure the third-party guy can never sell his airplane to X-planers? What am I trying to do? And say, nobody should have to pay $20 for an add-on plane. No, I hire artists to build airplanes for X-plane, then make sure that not only does any third-party plane work, but any third-party plane works from a version of X-plane in the past, and third-party manufacturers can build the airplane they want and let the market decide how many of them they sell. That's the model. It's a fine model for now. I'm not touching it in the future that we're documenting here during this interview.
And for those third parties who are making stuff, when are you planning to, or when will you be able to give them information on how they can optimize their products for some of these changes you guys have been talking about?
Let's say I'll be very disappointed if I don't have some very good answers for that at your FlightSim conference in San Diego when we lay out our scheduling and maybe pricing and labeling and all that. And I'll be very frustrated if we don't have a beta for them to start experiencing at that point.
Yep. Okay. Raindrops on airplanes coming soon?
Why take away the fun? You see, I've got some videos in my mind, much like the lighting and tree videos. And sometimes if I give too much away in this interview, it takes away a little bit of the fun, of seeing things for the first time in these videos. So let's just say interacting with the weather has never been a thing that is anything other than of top importance to me, right? Because that's really when you know you're flying an airplane, when you're really interacting with the weather. That's when you realize how small you are and how big nature is. And that's what I want to communicate to people. And so I think that's certainly a part of the experience.
Yeah, okay, perfect. What about nav data? People are asking about whether there'll be some kind of a built-in updater to the system.
My question. So they are, of course, the next generation is going to ship with newer nav data. There's also more data that we take advantage of. For example, we have all the airspaces in there, and we have the airspace data integrated into the ATC system. So it's going to know, oh, this is the Columbia Metropolitan Class Charlie airspace, and the controller is 133.4 when you go into this airspace. So, and this is data that we generate from airing data, obviously. So if you have a Navigraph subscription, or if you have a subscription with Aerosoft Nav Data Pro, obviously you can pull monthly updates every 28 days if you want. And it will not only update the approaches, the SIDS and stars, and the waypoints. Oh, we got VFR waypoints now. So just last week I put it in so that you can see and explain the VFR transition into Oshkosh with like Parkaway Lake, Green Lake, Ripon, and all those waypoints that they show up with their little flag and their name and stuff like that. Yeah, but with a nav data update, you get all of this plus the ATC data plus the airspace data. Yeah, but I don't think we're going. I think the question was aimed at, like, will X-Plane itself have a nav data updater? And the answer is no, because we're not directly involved with Lido or Jeppesen or any of them. We are pretty happy with what Navigraph is doing, and we'll keep working with them for that.
What about sounds? Any plans to change those sounds and particle effects?
Oh, yeah. So Daniela is a new hire. You have not seen her work yet. And someone else from South America. And she is our sound guru. We have not communicated our new sounds yet to what Daniela brings. But we're going to have to do a video that's just about sounds.
Well, and the sounds we're talking about are not sounds connected to aircraft. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's only part of it. I mean, Daniela does airplane sounds that just have you like, oh my gosh, I'm in the airplane. Maybe we should release a video to YouTube that has no video. It's a black screen, but it's all the audio. And you're like, whoa, what's that? Oh my gosh, is that an APU starting up? Oh my God, what's that truck doing coming by? Oh my gosh, the engine's starting. Am I supposed to be here? We could come up with the most incredible YouTube video that sounds only. It's like, we're just, with only on the video will be a few words. Put on your headset. Yeah, so sounds, it's a thing that is so easy to forget because we're so focused on the flight model and the visuals, we totally forget about the sounds. But the first time you actually experience proper sounds in a simulator, it's like, oh my God, I'm actually there. So yeah, I've got an amazing artist on that, and we will see the fruits of her labor.
We have these weird dings randomly coming through, and it was like quiet, and then as soon as you started talking about sound, they all started coming back. So I have no idea what's up with that, but that's very well timed.
I'm going to have to try and diagnose it during the interview, I guess.
I know. Whoever's doing it, though, that's brilliant. Any plans to explore a Laminar Research marketplace?
Slack running. Somebody left Slack running on the interview computer. Just shut it down.
Marty.
I hate Slack. So
hit Marty for us when you're done, will you?
Yeah. I it was you, and there's something all right, now Philip's trying to work through the eternal list of giant icons. Did you get Slack?
Slack is gone. Yeah.
Slack is gone.
All right.
Sorry
Thank you for that. Any plans to explore a Laminar Research marketplace?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Any plans to explore a third-party marketplace within the game like Microsoft has done?
A definite maybe. And the reason I'm a little bit lukewarm on that is kind of my my inner libertarian comes out to a certain degree where I just say, look, whatever you want to do, do. And if anybody wants to sell the airplane, they can sell it. If they want to give it, they can give it. If they want to use xplane.org, they can use xplane.org. I don't want to step on anyone else's toes. I don't feel the need to compete with everyone on everything. And the ability to download airplanes inside of Xplane would be cool. I'll give you that. It would absolutely be cool if Xplanes were like Steam. But it's not my absolute top priority because I'm not in like a race to see if I can stop anyone else from being able to do it on their own. That's just not my nature. So that's always kind of like the second item on my to-do list, or third or fourth or fifth item on my to-do list.
Okay, I think that probably is about where we're going to wrap it up. Are there any questions you wish that we had asked you? Anything you really wanted to talk about?
I have one.
Go.
I'm really, really, really disappointed that no one asked why the symbols on the 737 nav display are so small and when you're going to fix it. So the answer is I fixed it a couple of weeks ago. That's all I'm going to say.
There we go. All right, better nav display, better avionics. So Philip does avionics and nav, and that's a constant ongoing march upwards.
I got a comment. I just want to make sure that we heartily invite everyone to go to San Diego to FS Expo.
Which is on what dates?
On the
September 24th, 26th.
24th through the 26th.
Finally, a question I know the answer to.
2021.
Of 2021. Okay.
Got to get the year right.
This September 24, did you say?
Through 26.
Through 26.
2021.
All right.
In San Diego.
In San Diego, yep. And I'll be there, and I guess we'll bring a pretty decent Laminar Research contingent to this.
I guess we will.
We probably won't halfway it. Because at that point, I'm going to show what we have at that point in a more complete, shall we say, form rather than just these little YouTube videos. And then people can see what they think about it.
Yeah, and so you guys are doing 3 separate things there. One is sort of a tutorial on systems operations, FMCs, McDo's. Then there's the big one on Saturday. I don't know how much you want to tease about that, but that's where I think we're going to talk a lot more about what we're doing right now, right? Basically, it's like, let's see what we've got type thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to show the next gen simulator, say how you can get it, when, and I want to. X-Plane 11 is it's been a heck of a run, but it's looking very, very, very dated to me right now. So it's time for what's next.
So you'll be showing that off on Saturday, and then Marty, do you want to talk about the landing competition on Sunday?
We're still working on that, but I think I'll let Austin make some comments if he wants, or
sure.
Just hold it back and have a surprise when we get
Okay, a guy named Jorg Reich had a ski chalet in the Black Forest of Germany, and in the fall when it was the snow was all kind of melted and it was all kind of like wet or whatever. In the fall, no one would go there to ski and no one would go there to hike because it's all rainy and gloomy outside. And the whole ski chalet would be turned into a mega X-Plane conference where we'd all show up and all the computers would be networked and we'd all be flying X-Plane together. It's one of my favorite memories. And late into the night, we had a landing competition there. And it was still no ordinary landing competition. Some guys had built this incredible, like Dr. Seuss virtual scenery in X-Plane. It's completely unrealistic. Looks straight like it came out of a Dr. Seuss book. And we would try to get a 747 down into this 3,000-foot strip down deep in a valley, and then get stopped as quickly as possible. And to my absolute shock, Robin Peel won and beat me, to which I was extremely surprised and annoyed. But then again, I was also drunk. But so I would like to try and bring that fun to everyone at Expo. So the landing competition is not going to be like what we did last time, where it's like, okay, land the 737, now follow the rules. Now I'm going to come up with something that's freaking crazy. And if you can get the thing on the ground on the runway, you're pretty much already patting yourself on the back. And then we'll see how quickly we can get some big awkward bird stopped in some tiny little tricky to access strip. And it'll be you're not allowed to leave the pavement, and how quick can you get the thing stopped? And the only rules are no other rules. So it'll be fun.
And there were some awesome, you guys had like a VR headset and I think a honeycomb yoke and some other great prizes last year, so I'm sure there'll be more of the same this year as well.
Yes, sure. Good prizes.
Plus you get to compete on stage in front of Austin and everyone else. I think we made you do a flight last year, didn't we, Austin?
Yeah, we did. And it's fun. I look forward to going again this year. We're going to come up with something something pretty crazy.
Okay, guys. Well, I know you probably want to get back to the show at Oshkosh, so I think we're going to let you go. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much. I think the audience really enjoyed it. Folks in the chat, this is your chance to say whatever you want to explain real quick and say hi to the team. So maybe share what you thought of today's presentation, share what you thought of the trees and the other stuff that has been shared with you, because they'd love to read that. And Austin, Marty, if you guys have any closing words, anything else you want to share with people?
See you in San Diego.
And keep an eye on our YouTube channel. We're not done with the teaser videos yet.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, guys. A huge thank you to them for being here today and for a phenomenal presentation that they were able to put on. And remember, if you've enjoyed what you've seen today, this is exactly the kind of thing we are doing in September at FlightSim Expo. So we really encourage you to come out and join us. Obviously, the in-person show, that's the best experience. We are going to have more than 30 exhibitors there, 30 plus seminars, including 3 from X-Plane, and at that big announcement on Saturday that's going to be all about what you just heard today. Of course, today you can't actually physically go up and mob Austin and ask him all the questions, but you can in San Diego, and he loves when people do that. So it'll be a great chance for you to say hi, hang out with them, and of course the rest of us. Obviously, if you can't make it in person, we do have access to the online show. So exactly what you saw today, 30 of those are going to be happening over the course of FlightSim Expo weekend. It's $15 to register for the online show, and that would make a huge difference to us in terms of being able to help run it. You're helping to support the costs of live streaming and having the venue and all that stuff. So you can find the information on that at FlightSimExpo.com. Again, you can help support us here at FlightSim Association with a captain subscription for $3 a month. We're going to probably not be doing any more of these webinars until the show as we gear up for FlightSim Expo, but lots more discounts and lots more to come. So again, huge thank you to Marty, Austin, Philip, and the team at X-Plane. We will look forward to seeing you hopefully in person in San Diego, and if not in person, then for the online show. Thanks again, everyone, and we will look forward to seeing you in San Diego.